Which one?
We believe in
Nigeria
and the promise she holds.
Yes.
That's where we should all be at. I've said my piece.
No, you've not finished your piece. You'll still say more. Okay, so today, on Thursday, Nigeria celebrated its 60 years of independence in a low-key celebration. The Diamond Anniversary celebration brings no excitement amongst some Nigerians. They're not happy with the condition of the economy, infrastructure, and polity. The question is, can hope still be kept alive after 6 decades of independence? Question mark. We'll see how we can walk through this. So to help us look at this, we have here in Lagos, we have Mr. Bisi Akonde, Executive and Leadership Coach. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here.
And from our Abuja studio, we have Taufik Babaiju, who's a management consultant. And Mr. Ahmad Sajo.
Good morning.
Mr. Ahmad Sajo is Executive Director of Future Now Initiative. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Incidentally, it looks like we have almost all the age brackets covered here. We have the future, we have the present, and we have Mr. Sajo, who is a little bit more advanced in age, or appears more advanced in age. So let's start with you, Mr. Sajo. Nigeria at 60. You heard the commentary from the different quarters. You've seen some reactions. What would you say about 6 years of Nigeria?
60.
Well, thank you very much. I think we have, there are 3 things we should look at. First, we have the potentials. Nigeria is still a very, very potentially great country. There's no doubt about that. And we've not harnessed our potentials very well, but we still have the potentials. Secondly, we have grown, in terms of population. We have grown in terms of fiscal infrastructure. Where there were bushes, we now have cities. Where we had narrow roads, we now have big roads. And we despite some setbacks, yes, we have made some progress. But where we have challenges, the fact that we've lost our moral compass. And so everything we're talking about revolves around the fact that we have lost our moral compass. All the talk about we being very religious pales in the face of the fact that the real God we worship in Nigeria is the God of wealth, money. And so that has set us back a lot. And we have not actually constructed for ourselves a system that serves everybody. The social gap is growing widely every day. Nigerian people are very resilient, but gradually people are beginning to become very despondent about the future of the country, despite the fact that when it comes to resilience, when it comes to withstanding hardships, Nigerians are in the forefront. Anyway, you can give it to them. So I believe that in a nutshell, what I can say is, well, we have grown in the hardware, but the software, the human element, the human component, it's still very missing. You just spoke about a woman who at 60 became a PhD holder. That is the Nigerian spirit, the can-do spirit. But at the end of it, certain elements that should have made our education functional, our governance effective, some things that could have pricked our conscience to bridge some of the social gap that we're seeing, the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, and then these things must be addressed. For a brighter future, Nigerians must accept that, look, we need to reconfigure the way we relate with ourselves, the way we relate with the system, the way just like you said, people just keep blaming government for everything. Yes, the reason is simple. I started life in a very humble way. I was one time a cattle herder, and I know that even cattle, when you see cattle going, there is a big bull in front. No any other cow or cattle would go ahead of that bull. So this at the center of whatever we're doing is leadership. Somebody must say, look, I'm going to do it this way, and that this is the way it should be done. Until the day we have our leaders obey traffic light, we have our leaders follow the lanes that they're supposed to follow without blaring siren and knocking us to the side, we will not understand that there is a need for us to have order on our roads.
Okay, Mr. Sajo.
And it
Mr.
goes
Sajo,
on and on and on and on.
Mr. Sajo, just hold your horses. We're still on here. Let's see if we can bring in Taufik and Mr. Akonde real quick before we go on a break in the next 3 minutes. So let me read this tweet that came in, and Taufik and Mr. Akonde, please, you weigh in 1 minute each. Dr. K, whose byline says, from the token and the small is a profound. I like that. But he says, let's stop this narrative about Nigerians being responsible for the rot. It's government's responsibility to formulate and enforce policies. Are the people responsible for looting, nepotism, repression, and lack of direction of government? That's a question Dr. K is asking. Taufik, I'm not hearing that conversation. Nigerians believe that. Don't tell us it's us. It's the government thing, it's your authorities thing. But having heard from Mr. Sajo, Nigeria is a potentially awesome. The potentials are still there. What you say in 1 minute, because we need to go on a quick break.
So for over 40 years, I've heard about this Nigeria being a potentially great country. And it's very interesting that the theme for this year's independence is very, very apt, diamond in the rough. We need to just understand what that means. Interesting how diamond are even are formed. Okay, diamond are formed below the hard crust, with a very strong temperature and pressure, which crystallizes the carbon to become that crystal, to become that rough diamond. But it takes a lot of polishing, understanding that this rough diamond needs to go through a process that refines it to make it attractive. I've heard that Nigeria has potential for over 40 years that have grown. Okay, so for how long are we going to be in the potential state? Like Mr. Sajo rightly said, this nation needs some right amount of leadership, which is driven by purpose. And it is very interesting to know that where purpose is not defined, abuse is very, very inevitable. Okay? And for us as a nation to get from potential to kinetics and get to where we need to get to as a nation, there has to be an overarching vision driven by strategic, intent. For every Nigerian, I ask you today, what is the Nigerian dream? I've been here for over 40 years. I don't know what the Nigerian dream is, but we still believe in Nigeria. We know Nigeria needs to be great. I'm a physicist. My background is physics, apart from being a management consultant. And I know that the first law of physics states that a matter will be in a motion, at state of inertia, until an external force, acts on it for it to move faster, and to get its potential. So for us to move as a nation, we need to exert that force. And it comes from not just leadership. Okay, leadership has a role to play, but what are we doing as followers? Okay, what alternative agenda have we set as followers until we start holding leadership responsible, until we start stopping asking, we stop
sorry,
asking.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you now. We have to take a break at this moment. See you after this break. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Now, before we went on that break, we listened to Taufik, who was talking to us from Abuja, and Neota had read out a tweet, and he wanted him to weigh in to comment about that tweet, and he had promised to take that same tweet to Mr. Akonde, who's with us in the studio. Dr. K was saying he didn't think that we were the problem. Are the people the cause of the looting and the nepotism and the repression and the lack of direction of government?
Well, yes, and no, I agree with him on one side. On the other side, I would disagree with him. Yes, of course, leadership needs to provide direction. We need to know where we are going. Very correct. But the question has always been, where did the leadership come from? From us. I'm going to be 50 soon. My brother is 40. Now, I don't even know the Nigerian dream also, just like he said. I don't know what we are about. Then I've always heard that our problem is leadership. By the time the present leaders were not leaders, they said our problem was leadership. So where did we come from? Now they are leaders, and we are now saying our problem is leadership. The question is, who is going to solve that problem? Who is going to be at the base to do those things? So I agree with him on the sense that government should provide leadership, provide direction, but again, we the people have a role to play in doing those things. Now, we need people who will be able to, and I think the older speaker said something that was very, very profound, and that is our moral values. We really, as a people, have lost our moral values, and that needs to be checked and looked at. What are the values that should drive the people that are called Nigerians? So that we can now together move. Because if we don't have the same values, honestly, we won't be able to achieve the thing that we want to achieve. So we need that value back to the street. He pointed out something. If we keep breaking the rules, if we keep doing things, if we keep celebrating corruption, because the truth is that we fight corruption on one hand, we celebrate it on the other hand. Because if somebody has good money, whether from corrupt system or not, people celebrate it. And if you celebrate that, of course, it tells the younger person that this is celebrated, so what do? Join the queue. So we've got to look at those two sides of it. It is both the people. The people need to also begin to take initiative to make things happen. Like what you are doing here now might look to someone, but you're adding some value. You're making some change. You are changing somebody's mindset somewhere to do the right thing.
Let me take... Okay, no, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Sajo, you spoke about this country's potential, which Taufik said he's been hearing about since he was a little boy. And the president's message also was a message of hope. Some people are saying that every year, whoever is in power comes and gives us a message of hope. Are you not... Do you not think that they're pushing Nigerians too far, asking them every year to hope and hope and hope, and yet every year their lot seems to be getting worse?
Yeah, I agree with you absolutely. You see, the thing is that we are like I said at the beginning, we're very resilient, and I think even leadership is taking that resilience for granted. People believe that Nigerians can take anything, but and our focus, for example, should be on the young people. Our young people today are in deep difficulty because they've never lived under a Nigeria that is a bit sane. I am the oldest person on this discussion, and I will tell you that from my engagement with people who worked, for example, in the Premier's office in northern Nigeria, Amadou Bello, when the northern region had 3 private jets, whenever he flew on a private trip with any of the jets, he pays from his pocket. You know, this was where we were. You know, we had a leadership. When the late Obafemi Awolowo declared free education for Western Nigeria, he had a vision for this country. So there was a time when things were done the way that they could impact positively on the people. And so that at that time, when you say there was hope, people had hope. But what is happening today is that we just receive messages of hope. But we ourselves, what are we doing? I keep telling young people when they come to me, look, young people, they tell you that you are the leaders of tomorrow. But don't you know that today was the tomorrow you were talking about yesterday? When is that tomorrow going to come? So we need to begin to sit down together as a people and begin to construct, you know, the systems that can work for everybody. And we have the potentials. Nothing has changed in Nigeria. Our potentials are very high, you know. And we are also spared by God Almighty of the disaster that we see in other places. No earthquakes, no tsunamis, no typhoons, no hurricanes. We are a nation that God has blessed so immensely. I keep asking people, you know, our environment is so friendly that I come from Adamawa State, and Adamawa State is cocoa producing state. So you can imagine you can produce certain crops across the country and use it to make leverage on it to make progress. But are we doing that? We are not. So we have the potentials. Yes, we do. But we're not harnessing the potentials. And it's the harnessing of the potential that should matter to us. And it's also, part of our potentials is that we have a very vibrant and very, resourceful young population. But we're not harnessing that population. We're not harnessing it for progress. We're not harnessing it for development. We're not harnessing it to make sure that it serves, the greater interest of this country. So I'm calling on young people, and this is directed at young people. Young people must rise up, begin to hold leadership, hold those of us that are accountable for why Nigeria came to where it is. And they should start constructing a future for themselves. We shouldn't wait for those of us in the older generation to construct a future for you. Your future is in your hands. Let's begin to talk from the narratives that are on the streets. What are the things that we expect of our leaders? What are like my brother here said, what is the Nigerian dream? If you don't know the Nigerian dream, shove yourself to one side and allow us construct a dream for ourselves. We do not even have an aspiration. We do not even understand where we're heading to. So we need to do that. We need to mobilize our young people, tell our young people that this is the direction that you should push Nigeria to, and you should be in the forefront. Never allow this fallacy that you are leaders of tomorrow. The tomorrow is today. The very people that are telling you are leaders of tomorrow were leaders in this country at the age of 20s, at their mid-20s, early 20s. By 32, Gawan was the head of state of this country. But today you are told to sit, to lie down on the sofa in your father's parlor and start dreaming of being the leader of tomorrow at 30, at even beyond 30. And I think that is unacceptable. We must begin to engage our young people to understand that this country belongs to all of us, belongs to them, and the future we're talking about is their own future. So they must be involved. We must construct a system that is anchored on social justice, a system that is anchored on equity, a system that is anchored on, the fine tenets of understanding that Nigeria belongs to all of us. We need to bridge the social gap between the haves and the have-nots. We must create opportunities for everybody to have the maximum that he can get. We should stop this system that we now have where we have hegemonies, that only the children of the top civil servants go into the civil service, only the children of the top service, military people go into military service, only the children of the connected people within the business, the organized private sector go into private sector. I mean, by the time we begin to build these hegemonies and we keep people out of...
Mr. Sajo, you're really, it's very obvious you're very passionate about this and the future. But let's bring in Taufik. Taufik, there are a lot of comments that are coming in here, some of them quite angry. One of them, if I could summarize a couple of them, is again tied to that matter of don't blame the government. Yes, we agree that it's a leadership thing. But when it comes to enforcement of some of these government-formulated policies, the question is, do we have to wait for the authorities to enforce? I like what Mr. Sajo said. Hold leadership accountable. Now, so you're in a traffic situation, and everybody, it's a red light, and everybody looks, they are moving. They're not stopping by the red light. Do you follow them? Or would you be the one to set the example and stay? Even when there are blaring horns behind you, or you're in a 2-lane road where they have formed 4 lanes, can you help to merge that without anybody shaking you? Would you join the bandwagon because you can't beat them? Or would you take a stand? Someone says, there is no way society will move forward above the moral grounds of, or the aggregate moral grounds of the citizenry. The aggregate moral grounds of the citizenry, especially because leadership comes from the society. Before you ended, you said, what is your dream? What is your plan to bring about leadership where you are? What do you think? Can it be done?
Well, thank you very much, Nelta. Let me take it from where the last 2 speakers, Mr. Sajo here. Interestingly, I was in your Adamawa Yola for the first time this year, and I saw a very beautiful states, the floodplain, it reminds me of a city called, Arizona, in Louisiana. And, a lot can be done from Adamawa. And I looked at that environment. I stayed 2 days, and I was wowed by the beauty of nature in Adamawa. Adamawa is a place where about 6 flights goes to Yola every day. That means Adamawa is not just, it has potential not just to be a tourist attraction, but a business hub. And it's sharing border with Cameroon. So for every state in Nigeria, we need to see every state of Nigeria as a business. Every country is a corporate entity, okay? And having said that, young people in Nigeria have the right to be angry, of course. I grew up during the military regime. I was in primary school when General Buhari, when the current president, General Buhari, took over power. So 40 years, about how many years after? Maybe about 30-something years after, I'm in my 40s. I'm still, stuck with General Buhari. It may be a coincidence, okay, but I know that nothing has changed. The same political, system are still here. But what are we doing as young people? Okay, we've been told that, the future belongs to us. And just like Mr. Sajo said, interestingly, that, the people that are ruling Nigeria today were in their 20s when, during independence and, when they first came into the political environment. But what are we doing as young people? Most young people have disconnected from the system. Because like I said, there has to be a dream. A country is an enterprise. So there has to be a dream that people are aspiring to. The American dream. Okay, I don't like to compare Nigeria with, US and the rest of them, but we need to grow our own vision, strategic enough that everything must anchor on it. For example, I've been doing some work around agribusiness in the past 20 months. For me, it was more of a study. I was interested in how we can bring project management, drive agribusiness as a business endeavor, and deploying technology to that sector, which is very promising. Nigeria has 84 million hectares of arable lands, which less than 50% of that is used. Billions cubic of water body, both surface and underground. And last year, when I was on a study trip to Israel, and to see how agriculture has been revolutionized, and we're talking about the land value and the water value that Nigeria has, natural value. And the guy looked at us. I said, "And you guys are here? You should be the food basket of the whole world. You have 200 million people to feed, and across Africa, you have about 1.2 billion people to feed. You have no business. You have no business being here. You should go back home and make sure that your agriculture sector works." Okay? So for every Nigerian, we want to do what is right. Each and every one of us needs to start from our own space. Sometimes I'm at the traffic light, maybe in the evening or at night, and there is nobody in front of me, and there are people behind me, and they are honking at me to say, "Move." There are no cars coming from the other side. I'll stay there. If you want to move, go behind me. I'm on a queue. One big man comes in and he jumps the queue. I talk to him. Those times I lose my cool. I say, "Sir, excuse me, sir, there's a queue. Go back and queue." So sometimes most of us, or almost all of us, need to start doing the right thing. Okay, but like Mr. Bisi Akode said in Lagos, that where does the leadership come from? It's from us. Okay, they don't come from heaven. Okay, but the future, the values have been demoralized. Okay, for the last 20 years, for anybody that is a young man, that is a teenager, for the last 20 years, he has seen how it is, how easy it is to steal money from the coffers. Okay, it's not the citizens that made that, but we've created a system that makes it so easy to steal Nigerians' money. It's a system that we created. And we need to start having conversation around and holding people in government accountable, while we are also doing what is right as people. If everybody stopped collecting money from politicians today, because, for example, what is the job of an honorable member? The job of an honorable member is not to give you money. It's to make law. But you vote them, you ask them for when you're having burial, you send text message to them. I have some of them as friends. They can't even pick their calls because 90% or 99% of the calls that comes in, somebody is asking for money. That is not the job of politicians. So he needs to start looking for money. He needs to sustain his lifestyle, because the only thing that, the contract between him and his constituency is how to fund, some of them, pay school fees of some people. We need to now disaggregate what it means to be in government, okay? Because federal government is carrying too much weight. And like I said, we need to start treating this country as a business enterprise with portfolios. Abuja is a portfolio. Lagos is a portfolio.
Taufik, if the politician doesn't want to be called or receive text messages that my daughter is getting married or my father has died, he is the lawmaker. So it is his job to make laws that will at least tend to make every Nigerian self-sufficient. The system has turned all of us into beggars. Many can't even feed themselves, so they have to go to the legislator to beg for money to feed their children. And what has caused that? It is the system. So they are in a place to fix that, so they can't complain. If they're tired of it, they should fix it.
Mr. Conde, Mr. Conde.
Taufik, you're not saying anything about that?
Okay, while Taufik is thinking about it, Mr. Conde, this conversation, again, where he says, what are you doing from where you are? Now, that might look like a tough place to be, because someone will tell you, what do you mean, what am I doing from where I am? Look around me. I don't have light. The roads around me are not good. I don't have water. I've provided all of these things for myself, and I still pay taxes. But how do you still expect me to go around enforcing what you say, or what should be the government's responsibility?
Okay, I think that, first of all, I agree with you when you say they are in the place to change the system. That's very correct. And they need to work on that system, because we can't actually afford to be beggars. But in my space, I do some things, and I'll share this with you. I was speaking to some people sometime, and I said something accidentally, as it were, that if you go through the roads and you spill water on someone on the side of the road and you cannot park your car and say, sorry, you are not rich, you're actually poor. Now, I didn't know how much impact that had until a lady came around and told me that, do you know that this thing you said 3 years ago affected me? That if I go around now and I'm moving, when I see a pothole, I'm careful for the person that is on the side of the road, not to splash water on them. So we've got to get to that level where we begin to change the narrative, especially for young people, and begin to show them value. See, people behave...
Just hold your thoughts. We'll pick it up from that point, or we'll come back from this break, please. Just stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Mr. Conde, you were talking about where we are and what we can do. Can you pick it up from there?
Okay. So I was saying that people get their behaviors from 3 places. Hereditary, which is very little. Then there are dismemberment. Then there are role models. And I think that for me, if we've had this conversation over and over, our problem is leadership, and people are still growing in there, and they are doing the same thing, it means that some people need to just take the bold step to become real role models for younger people who are definitely going to take over power. That's the truth. Nobody is going to perpetuate themselves in power. No matter what, no human being has the capacity to be in leadership role at the age of 140. Even if you want to be there, you cannot carry yourself any longer. You will definitely go. But you see, look into the private sector and look at what Nigerians are doing with small businesses. Honestly, Nigerians are doing fantastically well. And I think that we can begin to look at that area of leadership rather than just looking at this governance leadership. Because the people, I think, who are in government leadership, I don't think they are in leadership. I think they are in rulership. There's a different system working there. They are thinking of other things. The selfishness is heavy. And that's why I'm comfortable, so why should I bother with the discomfort of somebody else? But unfortunately, a man who is comfortable and doesn't bother about the comfort of others will soon become uncomfortable. We need to look at...
In closing, just 30 seconds, closing statement.
Closing statement, 30 seconds, sharp one. That is very difficult, but this is it. Let's get our values right. When we get our values right, things will definitely change. Gradually, but surely.
Okay, Taufik, your closing statement, 30 seconds.
So my closing statement would be that the change that we require as a nation, to be honest with you, is not going to come from government, not anywhere around government. It's going to come from the private sector. It's going to come from ordinary people like you and I doing the right thing. It's going to come from the ordinary Nigerians taking their future in their hands, determining what they want as a nation, setting the agenda, and giving it to people in power right now. Because sometimes I feel that there is a dearth of ideas, and honestly, most of them don't know what to do. But I'm not saying it's a bad situation, but we need to start creating the alternatives, creating the new narratives, and showing the people in power what can be done as private sector. Because when America comes to you, it doesn't come to you as just America. It comes to you as JP Morgan. It comes to you as Amazon. It comes to you as Facebook. It comes to you as Twitter. Nigerian businesses and business entrepreneurs also needs to start coming to the table with the alternatives. Thank you.
Sajo.
I started by saying we need to rediscover our moral compass. We need to begin to look at ourselves, and correct the lost values, rediscover our lost values. But most importantly, young people must mobilize themselves and, put pressure on the system to change. What we have today is a system that protects privileges. It does not protect rights. And where you have a system that does not protect rights, it protects privileges, you will never have a just society. A just society is built around a system that protects rights, not privileges. So we need to reconfigure our system so that we can begin to protect our rights. The people must begin to ask, government for what they believe is their own right. Things like the social gap is getting wider. We must begin to bridge it. We must begin to talk. And the young people are the only ones that can set these agendas. And so we are calling on younger people to please rise up, forget about this notion of being leaders of tomorrow, be the leaders of today that will construct a system that works for everybody in Nigeria. It's only when a system works for everybody that the country can attain its full potentials. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmad Sajo is the Executive Director of Future Now Initiative. Taufik Babaiji is a management consultant. And Mr. Bisi Akonde is the Executive and Leadership Coach. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing this morning with us. So as we'll be back in a moment, please stay with us.